your infinite source of supply. Let me ask you something. If you had an infinite source of supply, would you make use of it? What would you do with it? Well, most people, sadly, aren't aware that there does exist an infinite source of supply. Now, in order to grasp this concept, we're going to have to look at it in a specific way. First of all, there are techniques that we can use in order to develop this awareness concerning life. If you look around you right now, everything that is made by the human hand is an expression of an idea, is an expression of the imagination of one or multiple people. Now, this is so simple, but it's so easy not to really pay attention to this. But once you start paying attention to this, you'll come to the same conclusion as I did, that yes, there is an infinite source of supply. Now, where is it located? If you look around you physically, you might not see an infinite source of supply available to you. Perhaps you have money issues and you don't see the money you need. Perhaps there's other things that you want, but you can't see how you can get it. Yet you have an infinite source of supply, so you might as well learn about it. Well, let's look at the following that I wrote down. Is there a limit to the ideas which you can come up with inside your consciousness? Again, remember that everything around you currently, that you're even using like a computer or phone to listen to this, is an expression of an idea, of imagination. It was first originated within someone's consciousness. So if you understand clearly that the physical manifestations of life are nothing more than ideas thrown into form, the results of your life are nothing more than concepts thrown into form. And knowing that there is no end to the ideas you can come up with, well, with such awareness we come to the conclusion that our source of supply is infinite, since it always starts inside our own consciousness. Again, really think about this. Is there a limit to the ideas that you could think? Is there a limit to the ideas that you could come up with that could improve your life and perhaps the lives of other people? Now, the fact is that most people don't take their time to actually originate ideas. They're not really using their minds to come up with better ways of living, whatever those ways are. Perhaps there are massive inventions, maybe not. It doesn't really matter. But once you start using your mind in this direction, you'll be able to improve your life. And it's like a never-ending supply, because where's the supply coming from? And it comes from your consciousness. It comes from the invisible source of your own personality. Now, how do we create better ideas? Now, that is a good question. Perhaps it's not so much creating ideas in and of themselves, but becoming aware of them as they float into our minds. The way I go about it is fairly simple. In imagination, I see the result I'm after, whatever it is, and whatever the area of my life I pick. I simply see what I want to create or achieve. Then through a calm but laser-focused attention, I hold that imaginary concept inside my consciousness day in and out. Wherever I go, whatever I do, always in the background of my mind, I hold on to the thing that I desire to achieve in life. And then, like magic, as time ticks on, ideas start to develop inside my consciousness. They are new ideas on which I know I can and should act so that the dream moves into physical form. So the important part to remember is that the ideas might not come to you instantly, but they will come to you over a period of time, as long as you stay focused mentally on the results you're after and emotionally on your feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, this is another interesting part, because the reason why most people disregard this concept is because they're impatient. They want results, they want to see evidence that their dream can come true instantly, and if it doesn't happen fast enough in their own eyes, well, they give up. It's like if you have a dream of becoming wealthy or financially independent, if you don't see evidence that you could become that within a day, for example, or perhaps even within hours, maybe you're that impatient, well, then most people give up. They're like, well, I can't see how this could ever come true, so why even bother? It's useless, it's a pointless goal, they would reason. This happens a lot of the times. But that's because we don't understand the creative process. We don't understand that consciousness always moves itself into physical form. Now, if we do grasp this, if we do take a close look around us at the things that we're using. Currently, I'm using a computer. I can look at it. I see all kinds of stuff, like the monitor, the speakers, the microphone that I'm holding, the keyboard, computer mouse, headphones. I mean, I see all these creations around me. And I know there were ideas either in an individual's mind or a group of people's minds. Now, when they had the idea, do you think they manifested that instantly? I don't think so. In many of these cases, first and foremost, the very first inventions of these kinds took time to be developed, to be worked out. So a person started out with an idea of something they would like to have, like to create in this world, and then through a process of time they were able to develop the right way to make it happen. Now these people didn't make the mistake most of us do, where it's like, I can't see how this could ever become true, so let me give up on my idea. And that's the thing, people give up on their own dreams before they even start. And that's what we want to avoid doing. We want to realize that everything can be manifested over a certain period of time. Now, another interesting fact concerning my own life is that when I was younger, in my teenage years, I would always do this unconsciously. So I think the universe literally led me through those experiences so I could now tell you about it with more awareness of the process from experience. So most people, when they become successful or achieve something, they're not necessarily aware of the power their consciousness played in achieving the results that they got. So what I did when I was younger was always see what I wanted. For some reason, I didn't have contradicting ideas. Of course, at times I could doubt, feel a little anxious or worried, or perhaps a little insecure about whether I could really pull it off, but for some reason I would always subconsciously at least stay focused on the dream. And I remember back then, the more I focused on it, the more I became determined to achieve it, to have something. And the more that happened, the more I started to believe I could actually do it. And as I believed more and more that I could do it, more and more results started to manifest. Like, people started to show up in certain instances that I needed help from, that were willing to help me. Even though when I started out, when I set the goal, I didn't know anybody that could help me. Isn't that interesting? Basically, I learned from experience that by holding an idea in my mind, no matter how unrealistic it is, that I could still achieve it if I hold on to it, because then the ideas start to develop more and more in depth, and then some magic starts to happen where you literally start to attract people and ideas if you need them in order to manifest whatsoever you want. Now this all ties back to the concept of your infinite source of supply. Again, if everything is an expression of the imagination, of the ideas we ourselves think and build inside our minds, and since there is no limit to the amount of ideas that you could create or the imaginary visions you could create inside your consciousness, it proves that you actually are working with an infinite source of supply by the very fact that you have a consciousness. Now let that really sink in. Because what are we used to do? We're used to looking at the physical side of life alone, and there we can't see an infinite source of supply. If we would open up our bank accounts, we wouldn't necessarily see an infinite source of supply unless you're already very, very wealthy. Then you might consider it that way. But for most people it's not the case. So they see a certain amount of money, and then they know they could run out of that money if they start spending it. If they're not investing it in the right way, they would run out of it physically. But here's the thing you want to grasp, is that the money in your bank account is also an expression of an idea inside your consciousness. So in other words, the money in your bank account, for example, is a result of past thinking. Now, if you want to create better results in this area, you're going to have to start working with better ideas within your consciousness. And I described earlier how I would do this. You would simply imagine yourself being wealthy, whatever that means to you, and you start seeing it clearly in your mind's eye. And as you hold on to that, as you become emotionally involved in that imaginary concept, the ideas for its expression start to come to you, and then those results on the physical side of life can change around. So you see, again, you're working with an infinite source of supply. This is what you want to burn into your mind. You don't have to feel poor. You don't have to feel like a failure. You don't have to feel lost at all. You are a child of the universe. You are a child of God. You have this power. The power of consciousness was given to you in the hopes that you will make great use of it while you're living this life. This is so sad, is that most people get caught up in the physical side of life, that they're unable to really grasp the infinite possibilities that lie without them, or I should say that surround them, that surround their consciousness. And not only that, that they can also sort of form willingly within their consciousness as well. Because again, there is no limit. There is no rules anywhere that say that you are only allowed to imagine in a certain way. So the universe allows you to imagine in limitations, or it allows you to imagine in abundance. It allows you to consider this concept of your infinite source of supply. So every time you go to sleep at night, I'd suggest to you really consider this idea. It should make you feel good. It should make you excited to realize that this power lies within you. And the only thing you have to do is learn to direct your own consciousness and build the concepts of what you want. So then the ideas start to be attracted to you. You either develop them within your own consciousness, or you attract ideas from other people around you over time. They might start suggesting you something, and you realize, this is what they're suggesting could help me achieve my goal. All of a sudden it happens. It's pretty amazing if you look back at it. If you're observant enough, you'll notice these things happen. So let it sink in. You have an infinite source of supply. There's no limit to the ideas you could think. If you grasp that everything is an expression of an idea, then you understand the importance of working with better ideas yourself if you want to improve anything physically in your world. Once you start looking at it from that angle, you'll come to the same conclusion as I did, and that is that there is no limit to the ideas I could come up with, so I have an infinite source of supply. Now, before I leave you to consider these ideas for yourself, I wanted to share with you the following text I wrote. I desired success and wealth for many years. I worked hard through many doubts and fears. It always seemed to escape my grasp, yet life goes by so fast. I was working so hard, feeling exhausted at last. Then one day it dawned on me that all riches start in the mind, so just be. So I began to feel rich in mind, before I had physical wealth of any kind. The universe opens our eyes as we seek. I am now no longer truly blind. For all that I give of myself to the world, inside my soul, I get to keep. Now with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.